Thank you. It's good to be here. I've done a couple of these already this morning. But at Twin View, the pastoral team does a really good job of asking you, like, can I get you anything? And of course, I got a coffee. But what I really wanted was a pair of jeans a size bigger than what I'm wearing, because these are so tight. I haven't worn them before until this morning, and they're supposed to look good, but it's like two black boa constrictors on my legs. It's just like, jeez. I think in the year 2020, I didn't get out of sweat shorts and Crocs. And so like jeans right now are just like, oh man, let alone these. So maybe the camera could, do they look good? Do they look extra tight? They feel extra tight. Is it working? Thanks, Jay. Well, today I'm going to talk about love. The word that is mysterious and feels, in our culture today, it feels, who knows what love actually means anymore, kind of that word. So I'm going to kind of dissect it and studying about that word a bit. So that's my goal today. Let's do this before I start, though. Let's just pray real quick about this. So, Lord, I just thank you for this morning. And I do thank you for every person in here and all the families that are represented here and all the families that where the dad or the mom made a decision to follow you, and then their family lineage is beginning now into the future, and all of those amazing yeses that people have made. I'm so thankful for being surrounded by friends and family that have said yes to you. And I pray that even today, on another level, that we'd say yes again to your version of love and what it means to move forward in the world, loving people. And I pray for revelation, Lord, so I sound really good. And also that people would, their hearts would come alive to the greater call of God on their lives. Amen. Amen. All right. Obviously, as my dad said, we've done the label for like 12 or 13 years now. And before that, we've always done music. So worship's had a special place in my heart for ever since I was a kid, I've shared a lot of that with my testimony. Dad teaching me the power of praise, and picked up a guitar at 17, and just from then on, it was just like, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing this music and worship. And one of the amazing things about what we get to do is we get to write songs. And a lot of people think you just push record, you write a song, you push record, and then you make a CD, and that's what you do. And I wish that's what we did. That's a small part of what we do. It's actually a lot more complicated than that. But one of my favorite things to do is to just sit with another person or two other people and co-write. The collaboration process of like the Holy Spirit doing his weaving of lives together. Because when you co-write, you're connecting lives and thought and perspective from different individuals into a song that hopefully the church sings together. It's such a cool thing. And for me as a songwriter, when the church sings a song that I've worked on with other people and it actually works, that's like the fulfillment for us songwriters. That's it. And so, one of the amazing things that I've seen happen in our world is we saw it with Joel and Janie's Jackson in the hospital, and then Johnny Helser had this melody, I raise a hallelujah, that kind of came alongside and out of that whole season. And then we see that song birthed in that rub, and then that song's gone around the world. It's one of our biggest songs that's impacted people in a generation. And then a lot of songs that you hear from writers. Matt Redman, if Paul's in here today, he sang 10,000 Reasons. I was driving up the hill this morning I was scrolling through a playlist trying to find I want just like a good worship song, just like something that I can just sing, worship God to, not like my feelings or thinking about, just something like that. So 10,000 Reasons, and I click on it and I'm singing it on the way up the hill today and turn my car off, and then Paul starts out with that. And I'm like, yes, we're on the same page. You're hearing from God. And that song came out of an amazing season for Jonas and Matt, who wrote that song. And so the goal is to try to like take what God's speaking to us as writers in our lives, in the grind, in the rub, and turn it into a song that, you know, everyone can sing together. And so I was working on a song last week. Actually, Joel over here, he's helping us with it as well, with a new friend of ours from Texas. His name is Sam McCabe. And God's been teaching me a lot about love. And when I say teaching, it's less about like learning about love and more like how do you live love and learn. You know, when God teaches you about something, it's less head knowledge. It's more, you know, I love Chris Cruz said this. He said the difference between knowledge and wisdom is knowledge knows a tomato is a fruit, and wisdom knows to not put it in a fruit salad. So like there's this like, and most of the time, like we don't learn by listening to other people. We learn by the hard way, doing things ourselves and really like learn, you know, the grind. And so God's really been teaching me a lot just about love, like real love. And it's been awesome to be in this like kind of journey. And so we were writing the song and we got to the bridge and wanted that opening lyric of the bridge to be, they will know us by our love. And it's that verse in John 13, they will know us, the world will know us. They will know us by our love for one another. How do we like talk about that in a song so that it has that power in the song that the verse has? So I'm going to read that verse. This is the Message translation. So most of you probably don't have that version, so you can just listen. It's John 13, 34 through 35. And it goes like this. Let me give you a new command. Last couple services ago, I was reading and I just could not read. And I was like, I promise I graduated high school. It's hard reading in front of people. Let me give you a new command. Love one another in the same way I have loved you. Now that's the tricky part. You love one another the same way I've loved you. And Jesus' life, the example of love that he lived on the earth and they even go into the cross that day, the things they said and did against him, all for us. It's a little different than I love you so you can love me back kind of love. It's this selfless, intense, like commitment. This is how everyone will recognize that you are my disciples when they see that kind of love that you have for one another. It's an amazing verse. And in the last few years, you know, like, I don't know, unless you are not watching the news or not on social media and you live like maybe on a commune somewhere, you probably, that has its own set of issues. You probably have heard the words love from a world's perspective, what love is. And the love I'm talking about today is not the love that is shallow. It's not the love that breeds entitlement. It's not the love that pressures you to conform to the latest thing you're supposed to post or jump on. It's not the love that's controlling and fear-driven. It's the love that's 100% pure. It's the divine love of God. It's the agape love. A couple of our artists a few years back wrote a song. It's actually one of my favorite songs of anyone that's in our label that's written. And we sang it at church a little bit, but it's the song called Pieces, and it was written by Amanda and Stephanie, who are now in Nashville. And the bridge lyric is what I want to read, because I love how they poetically like weave this lyric together to talk about what his love is and what his love isn't. And I love this part of the song especially. Maybe I should sing it. Someone give me a guitar. Today it'd be pretty hoarse. Your love's not fractured. It's not a troubled mind. Now, when I read this, think about yourself and think about all the thing. Like, I know when I read this, certain phrases stick out to me more than others, based upon kind of like how I view life, what I've gone through, whatever. And so as I read this, kind of different phrases, different parts of this will stick out to you. Your love's not fractured. It's not a troubled mind. It isn't anxious. It's not the restless kind. Your love's not passive. It's never disengaged. Hello, that's me. Well, not anymore. Pastor Brian now. It's always present. Hello. It hangs on every word we say. Love keeps its promises. It keeps its word. It honors what's sacred because its vows are good. Your love's not broken. It's not insecure. Your love's not selfish. Your love is pure. Amazing. I love that. If you do have your Bibles, could you turn to Corinthians 13? And I'm reading from the Passion Translation today because I like the Passion Translation because the way he says stuff is really, I don't know, I get it. And also it's got footnotes that explain what he says, which I really love. And what I do in here is this is a little tip for you today, Dom. I'll do an underline and then I draw, and it messes up if you're a perfectionist, you might not do this, but I have a word easily irritated and I draw a line down to the footnote of what it is so that I can quickly see it instead of having to search for it every time. So if you guys want to do that, you can. Let's read it. Thank you. You're welcome. It's all out of love. If I were to speak with eloquence in earth's many languages and in the heavenly tongues of angels, yet I didn't express myself with love, my words would be reduced to the hollow sound of nothing more than a clanging cymbal. And if I were to have the gift of prophecy with a profound understanding of God's hidden secrets, and if I possessed the unending supernatural knowledge, and if I had the greatest gift of faith that could move mountains, but have never learned to love, then I'm nothing. And let's stop right there. I read a commentary on this verse about moving mountains, and I'm going to read what the guy said. I really like this because to me it puts a picture in my head of what happens when we have great faith and we can move a mountain with that faith, but if love's not at the core of why we're doing what we're doing, what happens? What we can do, who we can affect with that great mountain that we're moving. And he said this, a man with that kind of faith can move great mountains, but he will set them down right in the path of somebody else or right on somebody else if he doesn't have love. And I love that because I feel like I've done that a lot to people, but it helps me realize in the push for all that we're doing, I'm like a big thinker, real driven, hard for me to settle down. I'm always trying to accomplish this stuff, but in the pursuit of fulfilling destiny and fulfilling the call of God on my life, I got to remember that people are also a part of it. And if someone gets in the way, I have to remember that's a person that God loves. like that's an actual person. And I can't, in the attempt to fulfill my destiny, grab that mountain and just throw it on them and then point at them and say, you're the problem. Little faith, really realizing if we have great faith, we have to have the love that goes with it, or we will do just that. We'll throw mountains on people. So let's continue. And if I were to be so generous as to give away everything I own to feed the poor and to offer my body to be burned as a martyr without the motive of pure love, I would gain nothing of value. That's the crazy part. Because I'm like, how isn't that like giving yourself to be in martyrdom for the cause? Isn't that like love? And a lot of times, it's kind of like if I were to go up to Lauren and say, that dress looks amazing today, but sometimes people say a compliment and they're just kind of like, I'm saying that because I want you to compliment me back. Or there's strings attached. I think this is about, there's no strings attached. When you give yourself as a martyr for the cause and there's no strings attached, that's that motive. It's about motive. Love is large and incredibly patient. Love is gentle and consistently kind. Consistently kind. To all. Not just people you like, to all. I love Danny spoke here one time, and out of all the things Danny said, one of the main things I've liked is my favorite is he goes, my favorite part about you is me and you. You know what I mean? We surround ourselves with people that are like us and agree with us, and then we were like, we're loving people. No, we're just like surrounding ourselves with ourselves. Like, that's not love. That's easy. And you know what I mean? So love is kind to all. That's intense. Sounds good, but living that out is real. Like that's tough. It refuses to be jealous when blessing comes to someone else. I love that. I love that. Love does not brag about one's achievements, nor inflates its own importance. Love does not traffic in shame and disrespect, nor selfishly seeks its own honor. Love is not easily irritated. In the footnotes, it says, love is not overly sensitive or quick to take offense. In the footnotes, it says, or does not keep score. Have you ever, well, if you've been married, you know that this happens. Like when you're in an argument or you guys are in a rut and you have a certain fight, and then you grab that thing that they said or what they always do, and you put it on the shelf and you just save it up there for the next time. You know what I mean? Like, and you grab that and you go, you always do this. And love doesn't keep score. Love grabs all those things in the moment that are wrongfully said and done and flushes them. And it's a clean slate. It's a clean slate every day. Because you can't get someone on the other end to change if you keep bringing up the thing that they do wrong all the time. There has to be a room for a clean slate to grow and learn how to connect with each other. And you're not going to connect with someone, and man, I wish that you could, by telling someone all the things they're doing wrong. That doesn't help with connection. I wish it worked, but it doesn't. Love joyfully celebrates honesty and finds no delight in what is wrong. Love is a safe place of shelter, for it never stops believing in others. Down in the footnotes of that part I really like. I'm going to read that. It says, love does not focus on what is wrong, but will bear with the shortcomings of others. And like a roof protects and shields, you could say that love springs no leak. It is a safe place that offers shelter, not exposure. I really like that. It's like we're called to be like safety nets for people and protect people. Love never takes failure as defeat, for it never gives up. I'm going to read that. That's the last verse I'm going to read. Love never takes failure as defeat, for it never gives up. All the speed bumps that happen in life, all the failures, the things, we're never defeated for good, because as long as we continue to love and we never give up, God always has promises for us, always has more for us than we could ever dream or imagine if we never give up. And like Danny says, keep putting your love on. I've been meeting with a lot of our staff and our artists. Pastor Brian, up here, I'm proud of that. It's a joke. No, they got me a plaque that says Pastor Brian. I've tried not to be a pastor for 30 years. I've tried to be a bad pastor for 30 years on purpose, and it's not. And here I am. God has his way. And I've just been loving it, meeting with people and hearing their stories and just the whole connection thing. Man, just love it. Actually, I do. It's crazy. Love it. I'm addicted to it. And I heard one of our artists was telling me a story about his dad. His dad's like his hero, and his dad was a pastor in a small town, like 3,000 people, kind of like Weaverville, small town, and he was a pastor, and he had a failure and a divorce. And in a small town like that, it's like, that's, usually you're like, I'm leaving, I'm out of here, because you can't go anywhere, you can't do anything, and rumors spread. The worst part of the rumor is always what people believe first, because bad news sells. And so half-truth is like getting your foot in the door, and then you can exaggerate the truth, and then people believe you. We do it it happens everywhere. So he's living in this town, and it's just like God's version of the story never is told, and he's just taking it like a man. And God speaks to him and says, I don't want you to leave. I don't want you to leave. So he just endures and stays year after year after year. We're talking decades. And what happens as a result is really amazing. And I feel like this is the promise God has for every one of us when we don't give up and we endure. Not only did he get completely restored in the town, but he's like the guy in the town, like the mayor. The respect he has in that town now, because people watched him just endure the lashings, endure the rumor, and he kept his head down. through all those years, now he has such favor in the town, and it's amazing what God can do in someone who just doesn't give up, puts their head down. He's at a place now where he never dreamed or imagined could happen, and it's because he just didn't give up. Love never gives up. You can't really love with this agape kind of love. Hold on, I just skipped the almost best part of my thing. Oh my goodness, that would have been terrible. I've been studying love in the Bible. There's 4 different kinds of love in the Bible. And I'm not going to say the word because I'll probably get it wrong. Dan or Dad, you guys can, as I spell it out, say it. 4 different kinds of words. But I'm going to read what they mean, because I think what happens in our culture is we have one word for love. We're limited on language, really, and how we communicate. We have one word for love, but there's actually 4 different words for love in the Bible. So we're going to go through all of those. First one is eros. Eros was one word for love. It described, as we might guess from the word itself, erotic love. It refers to sexual love. Number 2, storge. Storge, okay, or whatever, was the second word for love. The problem is if you type in Google, it'll say it and it's wrong. You can't really know what's the right way. So was the second word for love. It refers to family love, the kind of love there is between a parent and a child, or between family members in general. The third is philia, phileo. Doesn't look like phileo, but looks like philia or something. Sorry. You know, I get the sarcasm in the afternoon comes. All right, here we go. Is the third word for love. It speaks of a brotherly friendship and affection. And I would look at this one and be like, this is like that David and Jonathan kind of love, that connection, that bond they had. It is the love of deep friendship and partnership. It might be described as the highest love of which man without God's help is capable of. And then the fourth kind of love is what the rest of my message is going to be about. And it's that divine love. It's the love that Jesus walked out for us as an example. It's agape love. And it's the fourth word for love. It is a love that loves without changing. It is a self-giving love that gives without demanding or expecting repayment. It is love so great that it can be given to the unlovable or unappealing. It is love that loves even when it is rejected. Agape love gives and loves because it wants to. It does not demand or expect repayment from the love given. It gives because it loves. It does not love in order to receive. I love that right there. Just that whole thing right there answers all the questions about what is love from the Bible's perspective. Agape love is the love that 1 Corinthians 13 talks about. Charles Spurgeon said this in a commentary I read, and he was talking about how what we do with offense, what we do when someone says something or someone does something against us in life, or whether it's circumstance or situation or whatever, how we should view all of those things, because a lot of times we're trying to build barricades and walls around ourselves so we don't get hurt, so we can't feel the effects of a dysfunctional life against us. So we try to guard ourselves, and he's talking about what to do with, it's like when life throws you lemons, make lemonade. We can't avoid what's going to come against us in this life, and I would be maybe as brave to say that some of the stuff that we experience in life may be God. And you can't have that divine agape love unless there's that grind, unless you're put into a position to have agape love. So like if my wife disagrees with everything I say and does whatever I want, and I don't talk with anyone else in the world, and I'm not really able to like agape love my wife. Agape love kicks in when there's lies and deceit and people do bad things to me, and then I have to like that thing in me has to be formed to love with that agape love. So he said this about the pearl oyster. So just remember this when you experience something in life. When someone, it's interesting, after doing this study, if I feel like there's a rumor or someone does something to me, I automatically put this visualize this in my head. So hopefully you'll do this too, Dom. You ready? Okay. He said this about the pearl oyster. I would, some of this, oh, that we would, it's like I need that Braveheart music behind me. That old school. Okay. I would, my brothers and sisters, that we could all imitate the pearl oyster. A hurtful particle intrudes itself into its shell, and this vexes and grieves it. It cannot eject the evil. And what does it do but cover it with a precious substance extracted out of its own life, by which it turns the intruder into a pearl? Oh, that we could do so with the provocations we receive from our fellow Christians, so that the pearls of patience, gentleness, long-suffering, and forgiveness might be bred within us by that which has harmed us. And I really like that, because every thing that comes against us is an opportunity for us to grow in agape love, because we're never going to give up, right? We can't give up. We're not supposed to give up. It doesn't give up. It doesn't disengage. It stays in there. Man, I've disengaged a lot. I know it's interesting. If you stay in there, you don't give up. The very thing that was meant to harm you and to kill you and hurt you actually makes it so your heart expands and you grow in this love. It's literally what we're called to. It's like the greatest commandment. Meeting with one of our artists, I was just he was talking about his life, and he was mentioning to me about his dad. His dad had his upbringing, and he's asking his dad. He says, "Dad, how did you overcome? How did you deal with that situation? How did you overcome that?" And his dad said this: "I ask myself this question anytime something comes up in my life that feels difficult. What's going to matter in 1,000 years or an eternity? And that determines how I'm going to respond. What's going to matter in 1,000 years?" Now, it's so easy to say that, but when we leave today and someone does something bad against you, just remember that and try to respond appropriately. But what's going to matter in 1,000 years? God and people are going to matter in 1,000 years. Loving God and loving people in that order, because you can't truly love people unless you're infused with that divine love from God first. Then it's an overflow in loving people. And sometimes we try to love people without that divine infusion from the Father, and then it turns into control-driven love. But if we just, his yoke is easy, his burden is light, that's real. And I feel like part of this thing with loving people is it is hard, but it's impossible without God. With God, you can actually love the unlovable. You can love the person that did the craziest thing against you, and this miraculous ability to love them happens. It's amazing. Mother Teresa said, Mother Teresa, amazing. Like I said before, I love the business, the building. A lot of you have businesses and we're building, and you're like, where does love fit into like getting stuff done? Like, let's be real. Like with people. How do we get stuff done with people? Do you know what I mean? Like it's nice to hear about love, but like, I want to get stuff done. And when people, you know what I mean? How do we do that? And she says this: never worry about numbers. Okay. Won't worry about numbers. Help one person at a time, and always start with the people nearest you. I love that. It's simple. Never worry about numbers. Help one person at a time, and always start with the person nearest you. And I think that's especially good for those of us who love or are big thinkers, and we like to build business, or we like to have big dreams, and we like to fulfill our destinies, and we like to grab life by the horns and just accomplish things, remembering that the most important thing, the more important than that, is the people around us. And I'm telling myself this right now, everyone. The people around us, making those connections with them so that they feel loved with you. My wife and I were staying up at a house up on the Upper Sac a couple weeks ago now. And hold on. And by our house, so real nice house next to some other houses, and across the railroad tracks you drive to our house, and there's this it is like a dive, man. It's like the guy never went to the dump ever in his life. And it's just one of those places like, wow. You just look at it, you're like, oh my gosh. So my first, and if you know me, my first thought is like, I need to buy this property so that I don't have to look at this. just honestly. Not like, what's this person's story? Like, how does this happen? No, like, and so I drove by 3 days in a row, and I started actually going there. Like, how, like for real, how does this happen? How in the world does someone turn into that? And I hadn't seen anyone living there, but I saw a little red scooter out in the front of the house, and there was this like little toy airplane attached to the scooter, and it's like, it's interesting. So I was driving by one day by myself to get some groceries to bring back to the house, and I see someone come out of the house. I'm driving, and I just kind of look. And in a moment, it all made sense, right? In a moment, it's kind of like you don't know someone's until you wash their feet, and then you go, oh my gosh, I get it. Well, I see this guy, and I'm telling you, he's deformed. His one of his arms is so skinny all the way up. His other arm's this short, and he's got 2 fingers twice the size of mine coming off. And I literally go, oh, I get it. I get why that is the way it is. Part of loving is just listening to someone's story instead of jumping to conclusions and being like, how in the world could that person be like that? I watched this thing, it's a documentary on Netflix, and they're talking about algorithms with social media, and like every one of us sees different things. It's all rigged. I mean, I don't know, that might be rigged. It might not even be true. I'm just telling you what I heard. I don't know anymore. It's what they told me. But apparently, you see something different than I see something different. She sees something different than both of us see, and we're all seeing different things that are according to what they think we want to see. So we're living life seeing through different lenses, and we pass judgment, and we go, how could you be like that? How could you think that way? You know, I have the insight because, gosh, I look at Instagram 12 hours a day. I know what's going on in the world. Do you know what I mean? But it isn't until you actually get in with someone, you know, like lean in and just go, what's your story? And this part right here, you just don't talk, you just listen, and you lean in and you understand, oh my gosh, I get why his house is crazy mess. What did he have to go through in life? Like what kind of I can't only imagine what he's all alone, what he had to go through to get there. So practicals of this is love leans in first. So that agape love leans in first when it doesn't have to. Love apologizes first. Love says I'm sorry first. When you know that you're right and the other person's wrong, I'm sorry. That's agape love. Love begins with listening. Lately, I've been listening a lot, and it's been honestly, the most rewarding things I've probably ever done in my entire life is listening to someone's story, start to finish, and going, and don't say anything. Just say nod and just feel like, I totally hear you. Wow. One of the best things we can do, even with God and with people, is just say, well, one of the best prayers we can pray to God is, I don't know. I need your help. Yeah. And then one of the best things to do with someone else is if they're talking to you, just say, I don't really know what to do, but I'm here. I don't know the answers, but I'm here. Because something happens. This chemistry happens. This humility. It's kind of like a connection that happens. But we're so quick to have solutions and answers, and I know how to fix you. No, you don't. We don't know most of the time. Listening long enough until you understand the why. And that's the thing. And I think for me, it's like, I want to listen to someone long enough and understand the why before I have anything to kind of impart back. And a lot of times when we're listening to someone, it's not the words that they're saying, because our words are so limited. You know, it's like love. There's 4 different words for love in the Bible. But so when people are talking, it's not just about what they're saying. It's way back. It's the heart. It's the why they're saying what they're saying. And try to I wonder why you're saying those things that you're saying. Try to listen from that perspective. And I love this. You want to hear what they fought through to get where they're at. I hear about the battles, hear about the things they've had to overcome. That guy that walked out of his trailer with half the arm. And I'm like, I would love to hear a story. What did he have to overcome in life to get where he's at right now? Oh man, learn the story. Listen until empathy kicks in. When empathy kicks in, I think that's when we really can help and make a connection with someone. Empathy is this. In order to feel empathy accurately, we need to bring into play some very real skills. In the first place, we need to closely pay attention to the other person's total communication, including what the person is saying, the emotional tone of his or her speech, their facial expression, body language, and etc. We need to set aside our personal thoughts for the moment so that the focus of our concentration is on really hearing the other. In other words, we need to deny ourselves. This focus is not so easy as we are oftentimes in the habit of thinking of our own concerns or thinking of what we're going to say in response before that person is through speaking. We're professionals at that. I'll tell you, just get ready when it's my turn to talk, or not wanting to even bother and lean in. You can love without saying a word. Love is more about being present than having all the answers. Don't feel the pressure to have an answer or a solution. Ask people, what's your story? Get to know someone. Schedule your time to pour into others or serve others for their success, not yours. When we were in youth group back in the day, we'd always go to Mexico, like every summer, and we would take a week out of our lives as junior hires or high schoolers, and they'd throw us in the middle of like a dump scenario, and we'd just love people and pass out food, and then we'd like make cement in a moat and build like houses and do all this stuff. And at the end of the trip, we'd go to Tijuana and we'd buy a bunch of stuff that we thought was really good for like 50 cents, and you could, they'd come back. And we did that every summer. But one of the amazing things about those trips is when you don't have as much time to focus on you, you feel so fulfilled helping people. You at the end of the day, you're like, I'm fulfilling my call somehow. And I love the self-help culture that's happening right now, because part of that's really amazing, where people are really learning about themselves and who am I, and really doing a deep dive in healing. But I think one of the problems of that is when you have all day to think about just you, and you're spending all of your time fixing you, I feel like it backfires a lot. I really do. And we don't truly find ourselves until the divine love, agape, fills, and we get to walk that out, and then it's kind of like our mandate. I was driving behind a guy downtown the other day, and his car exemplified who he was with bumper stickers. So he wanted to tell the whole world what he was all about, and sadly what he was all about was just like sex and all this crazy. I mean, I've never seen anything like the amount of bumper stickers he had on his car. And what do you do in that? What's your first thought, right? Think about what you do. It'd be like, that guy, this guy's a, whatever. But a testimony of how I responded, because I've been learning about love, was my first thought was not that. My first thought was, I wonder what his story is to get to this point. What's his story? What did he go through in life to open up these doors to where he's putting sexual bumper stickers on his car for all of us to see? What causes someone to do that? And I think having that perspective in life, when you see that person on the side of the street or whatever happens in your life, the unlovable person enters your life, having the response that is, what is their story? I think is a really appropriate response to moving forward as a church in that agape love position and posture. Jesus did it so amazing that you read the stories. If you think about this trend and this theme, and then you go back and read like Jesus meeting the woman at the well who had all these husbands, and the guy she's with now isn't her husband, and somehow Jesus calls it out, and the connection was there, and so she sits there and listens. They have a connection. Jesus exemplified that so well in the Bible, loving the unlovable and making a connection with them because obviously he was love and didn't pass judgment. And this isn't the kind of love that breeds entitlement. And I want to be real clear that like sometimes we can get into a socialistic kind of mindset. And when I say that, I mean robbing from someone who's done a good job and giving it to someone who's done a bad job. That whole mindset. I'm not talking about that. And real love is 100% honest and 100% pure. It leans in with someone to where they're at, and then with empathy and good intention for their well-being and their future helps pull them out. And like in 1 Corinthians 13, is a shelter, is a safety for that person. Does that make sense? So I'm not talking about a passive kind of love that just enables dysfunction. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm going to end with a verse because I'm out of time. And this is one of those verses that it's kind of like, to me, it's like the verse, if you're going to memorize one verse in the Bible, this is a good one to memorize. And Christian Ostrom, one of our guys on the label, texted me one morning and said, I really feel like this is the verse. And I was like, this is so the verse. I'm using this for my preach on Sunday. It's in Philippians 2, verse 1 through 4. And this is the Message translation. And I'm going to read this in closing. If you've gotten anything at all out of following Christ, if his love has made any difference in your life, if being in a community of the Spirit means anything to you, if you have a heart, if you care, then do me a favor. Agree with each other, love each other, be deep-spirited friends. Don't push your way to the front. Don't sweet-talk your way to the top. Put yourself aside and help others get ahead. Don't be obsessed with getting your own advantage. Forget yourself long enough to lend a helping hand. All right, let's pray. So, Lord, I just pray for that right there. I pray that teach us how to love, walk out agape love, and not be selfish, and just infuse us with that divine love that can love the unlovable and lead the world in love. That we would be leading the way in that, and the world would see your body loving each other like you love the church. Amen. Thank you. Thanks.